At this time, I'd like to, got to bring it up. Sorry about that. I have to make the chairman's statement. Mr. Hurley, you prepared it for me, and I had it. So at this time, I'd like to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work session, followed by 3 closed work sessions pursuant to the general provisions, Article Section 3-305B3 for the State's Attorney, Department of Public Works, and the library to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto to protect the county's bargaining power. It's a motion.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. First item on the open work session is the forest conservation removal. And Mr. Harrison, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing great, thank you.
If you could, for the public, let everybody know who you are, what your title is. And
Sure. Colin Harrison. I work for Wicomico County. I'm the environmental planner.
Okay. Go ahead and let us know what you're looking at. You're looking at a forest conservation removal?
Yes, so first one will be for owned by John and Lene Rittenhouse. Parkers and Associates are requesting permission to remove a portion of a forest conservation easement that is located on site. This site is located off of Old Dagsboro Road. This property has a total area of 16.56 acres bound by a forest conservation easement. The applicant is requesting removal of 0.58 acres of the easement to be removed without having to provide off-site mitigation. This area is not located within any non-tidal wetlands or within the 100-year floodplain. So going back to the original forest conservation plan from 1994, FCA Plan 9431 shows that the original plan did account for mitigation of clearing at least 10 acres. So 50% of on-site conservation is still the standard today for a subdivision. So they were able to clear up to half of the net tract area. So since there was an excess of forest retained on-site, the 6.56 acres, the applicant is seeking an easement removal in order to expand the property owner's area of buildable land for a proposed dwelling.
Any questions on this? Did you say you did, Shannon? No. Josh, I know you do.
I'll just say this fits within forest conservation law, right?
That's correct.
All good. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll get this on the agenda.
Yeah, so it'll come back as a resolution, as a public hearing as well, on April the
Public hearing.
2nd. Yeah, April the 2nd at 6 p.m.
A public hearing with a resolution?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And the second one you had?
Second one is also a forest conservation relocation. This is also from Parkers and Associates. They're requesting permission to relocate a portion of forest conservation easement for a property owned by Mill Pond Village LLC. This parcel is currently burdened with 5.12 acres of forest conservation easement. They're looking to relocate 0.41 acres. This area is also not in any non-tidal wetlands or within the 100-year floodplain. Since the easement relocation will be located to an off-site mitigation bank, it will be at a 2-to-1 ratio. Once you figure in the square feet, it adds up to 0.83 acres to be relocated off-site.
Okay. That's all within,
Where does it get relocated to?
So this one specifically is relocated to Forest Grove Road. Many mitigation banks set up in the county right now, and they are able to be used until June of this year for forest conservation. They're switching over to afforestation banks after that, which is all newly planted trees. So these are already established forests off-site to where they have set up a forest conservation plan already, which is protecting them.
So what's to protect those in the future? Because it's just, I'm just asking, because it just seems like all we have to do is just vote on it and then we just move forest conservation. I'm just trying to think, why do we have forest conservation if we can just remove it with a simple vote?
Sure. It's all to get closer to a no net loss in Maryland in general. you know, they're trying to plan for the future and, you know, obviously lose less trees. So it's all trying to get, you know, your forest as close as you can to natural canopy cover.
And just a note, of course, it's obviously there's nothing like a old growth forest or a very old forest, even if it's not old growth. And certainly cutting down, you know, a forest doesn't mean it's immediately and replacing elsewhere with small trees. It doesn't provide the same kind of habitat or other kind of things. But in this case, we do require 2-to-1 mitigation effort. And I think that's the best
Runoff.
benefit of these kind of things.
Yes, thanks, Josh.
Okay, Ms. Hurley, this will also go,
We'll also come back as a public hearing on April the 2nd at 6 p.m.
all right. Anybody else? Jeff? All right, thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, council.
Next item we have on the agenda is the capital improvement plan for 2025, 2029.
Pronouncing is Niger. Niger. Not, remember that?
Pamela and Bunky, don't know exactly what you're looking for on this, other than it's on the agenda. Does council have questions? What?
Yeah, I think we do. I don't know who wants to start, whoever would like to, or Jeff, I know you're still out there. I think it's part of some of the discussion, Pam, is what we had touched on before in a previous work session. A concern that I have more than any other concern is the fact that we know that Fruitland Primary, Wicomico County Board of Education has Fruitland Primary as their top priority. And so much so that the county funded about $1.3 million last year, or maybe it's the year before, either way, but they've already spent that. I mean, they've done their architectural and engineering, they've gone through all the processes, and if you look at their projections, they plan on January of 2025 to break ground and begin with the school. My concerns is that there's no reference to that in the CIP outside of $4 million, which originally was in there for West Side Intermediate, and I believe West Side and Fruitland Intermediate, two separate projects with HVAC. Then, which was a total of $4 million. The $4 million stayed, but they changed it to the Fruitland Primary. But Fruitland Primary is not $4 million; it's $20,500,000, and they were asking that in 25. They're asking for that in 26, and they're asking about $6 more million in 27, as you do when you're in the process of working with the state of Maryland to get a school built and to complete that on a timely basis. So my concern was, with this entire CIP, what the expenditures are going to be with the Fruitland Primary alone. That's almost the entire CIP that's been presented to the council. So I'm not quite sure how we're supposed to address something like that. There are 28 different projects that have been listed to the total tune of this, $20 million, whether it's bonding or whether it's PAYGO. That's a lot of projects, and yet 20 million of what we have right now is, from what I understand, should be going to the Fruitland Primary, unless there's something I don't know.
So, going back in time, I have stated at this table multiple times that fiscal 25 and fiscal 26 are going to be years that, based on the amount of debt that we have outstanding, they are not years that we want to do major debt issuances. We told that to the Board of Education. We have stated that multiple times to the Board of Education over the last several years. We stated to them that we had $4 million available based on our estimates for fiscal 25 for them. We offered to do 2 systemic items for them and put on hold the Fruitland Primary. They asked us, between the time we did the public hearing and the time we submitted to you, to change that. They are well aware that the $4 million is what we have available in my estimate as your finance director that we can comfortably afford at this moment. Does that mean that they might have to get to a point and that their plans might have to wait? Yes. I don't feel it is fiscally prudent to the county at this moment to take on the building of another school. We have a lot of needs in this county. I understand schools are one of them. But if we allocate the $20 million that they're looking for, yes, we basically need to cut everything else out of our budget. And are we at the point that we don't want to do projects for any other department within this county that has caused us issues in the past? Council, this very evening, made the decision to finally do a renovation project, a replacement project that has been something desperately needed at the Civic Center for over 10 years. I understand Fruitland Primary needs to be done. I understand that the Board of Education is looking for more money than what we're offering at the moment. But I am trying, as your finance director, to weigh the needs of every department within the county. And those needs at this moment say to me, and the administration has agreed to those discussions, that we have to put some other departments. We have back to back done, since I've been in this position, done Bennett High School. We've done Bennett Middle School. We've done Beaver Run. We have done Mardella. We, as a county, have other needs. And I totally get that the Board of Education needs and wants a school, but every other project on this list needs to be done as well for the benefit of so we have presented to council a list that we feel is the financially prudent at this moment list. Yes, the Board of Education has asked for $20 million. We do not feel that that is the right answer at this moment. We also offered to them, okay, we will give you the $4 million for other projects at this moment. And we will put Fruitland Primary on hold, and we are aware that will take us out of line with the state.
Currently, though, the $4 million is for Fruitland Primary. It was changed to Fruitland Primary.
And they are aware that that is what we have available to allocate in our estimates.
I don't think there would be so much concern except the fact that the county has already funded them 1.375, almost 1.4 million.
Those plans don't go stale.
And when well, the plans do go stale.
Not in the way that you're thinking. It's not like the plans, we're not talking that we're putting this thing on hold for 10 years.
You don't have it listed for 26, 27, 28, or
Because-
29. And I have to ask,
Have-
what are they supposed to do with the $4 million? Because it's listed for Fruitland Primary. What are they supposed to do with that $4 million? You can't bring half a truckload in. You got to start the process, so you
So
don't.
this is to finish the design plans.
$4 million?
Is to get us to the point where they have complete plans and everything. That is what they told. When we told them the dollar amount, that is what they told us.
When
Now,
they take that total of now $5.75 million that they've spent in these 2 years, where's 26, 27, and 28? When are you going to build it? You're telling us that we're not even going to build it until 30.
so if you look back on historical CIPs, is there a potential, could we have put this in 27, 28, 29? Yes, we could. We have historically only put a project in the CIP that we are ready and know we have the funding available to us. Again, administration recommended to the Board of Education not to put this in. They basically said they want this in. I don't have an answer for you as to when the out years are. I believe it's 27, 28, but that depends on the economic conditions of the county in 2 years from now.
I know, but that's what a CIP is. It's a 5-year, it's not a
So,
2-year plan. It's a
sir-
5-year plan.
sir,
Where is it? I mean, Joe and I could tell you're talking about Bennett, you're talking about
I
all the
understand
other
that, but have
schools.
we ever loaded? No, we have never loaded the Board of Education's complete CIP in this thing. If we did, we would be adding, if I remember correctly, and I don't have those numbers with me, another $170 million onto this for the next 5 years.
Depending on what your priorities are going to be. I mean, you've got about another 27 million that you're projecting for 26, and you don't have the Board of Education in there. You don't have the Fruitland Primary in there. I mean, Joe and I, we can tell you, we've also been here when Bennett was done, when Bennett Jr. was done, when West Side was done. We've sat through all this. I've never seen a CIP in too many years
The last
where there wasn't funding started, and it was done in a logical planning process of year 1, year 2, and year 3. To sit there and say that you're going to commit $5.7 million between 24 and 25, and then say, oh, by the way, but we may not even get started until 2030. I don't understand.
I can gladly add it
Never
into
seen
the,
it.
I can gladly add it into the first year that I think it's available, which is 27. But I don't believe there is sufficient funding at this moment for 25 and 26. And so I can add that in, but that would be, again, the only things they get. We attempted to put other projects in here. They did not want us to present that to you. They wanted us to present to you a full $20 million. Again, as your finance director, I don't feel that's fiscally prudent for fiscal 24 or 25.
And
Based on-
I'd agree 100%, but we already have over $5 million invested, so I don't know.
But we don't have 5 million, we have $1 million invested.
Well, you have $1.7 million,
So, again-
and you have another $4 million you want to do this year, 25.
So,
And you're basing that recommendation on the monies that you've already have into this formula.
correct.
Yeah.
So, again, we can do one of two things. I can amend this for you and put it in the first year that I think it's going to be funded, which is 27, 28. Other option is we can reallocate the $4 million to the original things that were there, and at this moment not fund them anything additional until we know we can do 3 years of funding for Fruitland Primary. I am trying to be fiscally prudent for this council and this county, and again, as you perfectly stated, $20 million is basically the whole CIP.
Right.
So we had a choice. The choice we had was Fruitland Primary or the rest of the county.
It depends on how much you want to spend. I mean, we had,
Well, but
2 years ago, what was our CIP, 50 million?
And that was because we were bonding for a $34 million
I understand.
sheriff's department.
I understand.
And that is part of the reason why we're at, along with everything else that we have done, part of the reason why 25 and 26 are lean years. And it also has to do with the debt that we borrowed 10, 15 years ago. Not a lot of it falls off. Yes, the audit did say that we've gone down the last couple of years, and primarily that going down is not because we've been paying off debt, it's because we have refinanced debt and got it at a smaller interest rate. But I'm not going to have, the county does not have significant dollars going off the books.
About the $75 million we have in unassigned fund balance.
I view that as being better spent on multiple projects that benefit the county versus one.
Well, from what you're saying, it sounds like we'll never build another school again, because
I-
sooner or
I-
later, you have to bite the bullet, and you have to decide that you're going to, we never like spending $50 million to redo a school, but we do it because we know that's what we have to do.
But I don't feel it is appropriate in these 2 years. If you go back to the first time I sat at this council table in 2020, you can find things that I said that 25 and 26 are going to be years that we don't do a lot of borrowing. This CIP for 25, and now that council did what they just did, we're now down $4 million of what we want to borrow. I don't want to replace that with additional borrowing.
So what do you mean when you say because of what council did?
We just did a budget amendment to spend, in this CIP, we were going to borrow $4 million for the roof. We are now taking that out of fund balance.
All right,
So
clarify.
instead of having, we had $4 million for Board of Education, $4 million for the roof. We were going to do $100,000 with pay-go for the roof. That's why it was 4.1. And then we had, I believe, $2.5 million for corrections. We are now down to only $6.5 million that we are looking to borrow next year. And the question becomes, is as administration finalizes the budget to submit to council, we may find that it's more appropriate in this financial position that we're in to spend fund balance instead of borrow and pay interest. I don't have that answer at this moment because I don't have all the numbers pulled together. We're literally meeting with all the departments at this moment. Yes, this is a planning document. Yes, I did not put Fruitland Primary in here past 1 year. Could I? Yes. The year that I would put it in is 27.
I got a couple.
Hold on, Joe, let me get Shane,
Why would
'cause
we-
I interrupted him.
Why would we borrow 6 point whatever million dollars if we have it in our fund balance?
And that's why
Why
I'm
would we pay
stating,
interest?
and that's why I'm stating that as we pull together all the requests of all the departments and all the operating capital requests and all the other things, we may find that, because again, that $10.5 million number was based on us borrowing 10.5. Well, now that it's only 6.5, does it make more sense to not borrow it at all and to just do? But those are all the evaluations I need to do over the next month and a half between now and when we submit the budget. This is a plan. I understand. I know there are some corrections. There are some errors in this, and council just made a change tonight on the 4.1. Could I come back with a revised plan at the next meeting, because that is the current estimate as to when you are adopting this? And again, I still highly recommend that you adopt this prior to me submitting the budget, because again, it's still just a roadmap. We have made changes on this thing when we come to you for budget, because it is a roadmap. It is not a finalized, it does not authorize us to spend $1. This is a piece of paper with a plan. And as we get into finalizing all of our results and all of our numbers for the budget, that plan could be revised, and only the budget can set what we're going to spend.
Well, and I think Council President's questions are really valuable as we go into the budget season. So, you're faced essentially what I do state in a different way what Pam's saying. Basically, you're faced with the same question we were with the Board of Education, and maybe you come up with a different answer. Maybe you say that we should be doing the HVAC instead. I don't know. That's for up to you. But either way, that's incredibly valuable for us as we go down as we start our budget meetings.
So I will gladly amend this on council's recommendation But my estimate is that the remaining funding for this is 27, 28, and 29. It is not 25, 26. Or we can reallocate the $4 million to other projects for the Board of Education. Ultimately, that is we presented a plan. Could it be amended by you? Yes. Could we add on when I think the rest of the funding is available? Yes. I found a couple other things as we've talked and as stuff has been sent to me that, I wrote general fund pay-go when it should be enterprise funds. I typed the wrong numbers. You look at your own document and it reads exactly as you thought it's supposed to read. And, there's some mistakes in here. And again, the $4.1 million, I can revise this and pull that off of this plan because it's no longer necessary to be in this plan. Council approved that tonight. So I'm asking, what do you want me to give you for the 17th?
I've got, John, like John said, we've been through this building schools since we've been on the council, and I'm very proud of what the council's done, the county has done as far as supplying the Board of Education with some very nice schools. But what I remember most about building all these schools is the Board of Ed advocating to the council strongly that they needed these schools. I remember West Side. I mean, it was, we went over there to talk about remodeling, and it just blew up in our face. Oh, you can't do that. We got to build a new one. The same way with Bennett. Really not heard much about this big push to build Fruitland Primary. Now, I'm sure it's in their plan. It was their next one to build, but I don't know that there's that big a rush to build it. I mean, did they?
It's the first item on their, if you look at their capital improvement
Well,
plan.
I understand.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
Plus, they've already invested $1.4
I
million.
understand that, but it's not been, not heard this big, now, probably change next meeting, being I'm saying this, but, there's not been any big outcry. I mean, the school's air conditioned, it's not falling down, it doesn't need a new roof, it needs some work done on it, I'm sure. But, I don't know that there's this big, and Pam, I applaud you for being prudent with what you're trying to do. I know we don't usually agree on much, but anyway,
Again, I have stated to the Board of Education multiple times over the last several years that we could not keep funding a new school as soon as the school ended, especially for 25, 26.
And we put the sheriff's department in the mix there. I mean, that was a big one. I mean, what was that, 40 million altogether?
I think the borrowing ended up being about $35 million.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Which started as 8 million, right?
yeah, it started off.
So
yes.
again, I am tasked with being fiscally prudent for the county. Yes, I sit up here and advocate for projects all the time, and I have done it. I did it last meeting, and we came to an agreement as to what items council was interested in moving forward on. The fiscally prudent thing is I don't feel that $20 million can be spent in fiscal '25 on the Board of Education.
Let me think about what I'm going to say
We'll jump in.
before I say the wrong thing.
If you have any comments?
I can jump in if not.
Go ahead, Josh.
Just quick things. First of all, I personally am good with the roadmap. You say you wanted to accept this before the budget. Personally, I am good with that. I like, just what I do with my budgeting with my job. I intentionally try to fill out the things that, this is a planning document. You're going to expect that some of the things that are not going to go forward, some things are. I think personally it's better to see it in there, and I agree, and you've been very clear for a very long time, not only, of course, about this being a planning document, but also about that this was not going to be a year that we would spend. So personally, if we think that we are going to move in the direction, then I'd rather see that in the out years. I think it would be good to see the inclusion there. I do agree 100% with Joe and Councilman Holloway just saying that that there seems to be a mismatch between where the Board of Education's at compared to the administration and then to tell us, hey, this is what I need, and every other time that they've had a need from, Beaver Run, by the time I've been here, they've come in, they've had pictures, they've had horror stories, this is why we need to do it. And I agree that, yeah, we need to have I'm sure they've already said that this is an obligation for them, this is something they care about. I trust them in doing so, but I'm not hearing enough trust to be able to say, okay, $20 million off the bat or some high amount. It seems to me that they're maybe looking at our really high reserves and thinking that might be an opportunity. I don't know. I don't want to put anything on them. But to that point, we have very high, I guess, amounts of money in there in the reserves. We are literally, in the PKS said earlier, in the high-end estimate, the low to high-end, we are not only at the high-end, we are twice the high-end amount that is in our reserves than for any other, what is approved. So what is typically done for other counties. So I guess in closing all of that, I personally would like to see the out years. I would like to know that we confidently feel like, okay, for the next 5 or 6 years, this is where we are going, and we're working hand in glove with the Board of Ed to say that this is a priority for us. It just doesn't quite feel like that's happening. And also, I just haven't heard from the Board of Ed the amount,
You will.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But I feel like that's the one thing that's a little bit missing too in this.
So, again, if you go back and look at the public hearing document that we created for the executive's public hearing, yes, there were 2 projects on there. The board came back to us after that and asked us to reallocate that to this. I reiterated to them the $4 million was all that was available, even though they asked again for us to do 20. I understand that this gets us out of line with the state. And we then have to go back in the process. We can, the 1 point whatever, and again, that we have allocated to them already is not lost funds. Those are things that they can continue to use. If we spend the 4, those are not lost funds. It's not like fixing the roof at the Civic Center and then taking it off. Those aren't lost funds. Yes, we get out of the queue with the state by not putting the full $20 million. If a year from now, our financial position is different than what I'm anticipating it to be, we could move up. But my current estimate says the next time that we can borrow for one project, $20 million, is 27.
What I was getting ready to say is, we're looking at this one, you said this one project. Between now and then there's going to be other projects. It's not the end all of what we're going to need to borrow for other.
And that's why I'm saying is that
It's things that aren't even in your plan. I mean, something's going to pop up, a roof here, building, something happening there, somebody's going to want this.
the Verizon building is a perfect example
right,
of things
yeah.
that, opportunities that present themselves to the county that make fiscal sense.
Or needs.
And other buildings.
Yes. So, again, I'm asking council, do you want us to revise this? I have about 6 or 7 corrections that I could make. One of them being removing the $4.1 million for the Civic Center. I tabbed everything. Page 10, new building under emergency services for 26. The $2 million was not supposed to be general obligation bond. I wrote the wrong words. It should be all pay-go. Page 16, I mistyped some numbers. Under the regional systems for the different areas, and And so those would need to be corrected. The front adding sheet is right. The verbiage in the back is wrong. So I'm trying to make them match. Again, the Civic Center roof could be totally pulled off. And then for the convenience center improvements, it shouldn't say general obligations bonds, it should say enterprise fund balance for both of those. I can make those corrections, and I can also add 27 and 28 and 29 for the Board of Education.
I think we need to talk to the Board of Education to find out what their position is and, how you think this puts them in this light and as far as getting it done, what's going to happen with the state funding. I don't know why you guys say that you're not familiar with this. They put out a project schedule back in October.
I'm not saying we're not familiar with it, John. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is the push wasn't there.
Right. I don't know if they felt that, I don't know if they really felt that there was need to be a push. That what they were doing was implementing a project no different than they'd done for every other school, and they put it on as their number one priority in their CIP.
I understand, but also with the advisement from this side of the table that we did not have the funding. It is their number one priority, but as your finance director, I don't view it as being the number one priority for the county as a whole.
We have $85 million in unrestricted funds. How can we be short money to build a school?
Because I'm not looking to take $20 million out of fund balance for one project. That would be a borrowing that goes against our debt ceiling, that goes at the current interest rates of over 5%, somewhere between 4 and 5% is what we would be able to borrow this at. And we then pay that for the next 20 years.
I don't understand. I just can't comprehend the whole borrowing versus if you have extra money in your savings account.
So think about it this way. You have enough money in your savings account to buy a house in all cash. Let's just say. I'm trying to put it on. You have enough money in your savings account to buy a house in all cash, but it's going to use up a significant dollar amount of your cash that you have. Or you have the ability to maybe buy your car and make a repair and save for your kids' college and pay for your kids' college outright so that they don't have student loan debt. So you could do 4 or 5 things with your savings, or you could do one. My recommendation would never be to spend all of our savings on one project when we have so many needs.
We're not spending all of our money on one project.
But if we take $20 million for that, then the other projects that I'm recommending that we also spend fund balance on is another 11.
Right.
So then you're at 30.
Some of those need to be cut.
And what I'm saying is we have historically as a county put off maintenance and put off renovating every other department. Every other department. There's a reason why the roof is 50 years old at the Civic Center. Because we have deferred maintenance. John, you said it tonight. We've deferred maintenance out at the airport forever.
Right, and we've put millions into the airport, and that's what we're continuing to do.
So we need to look at the rest of our stock and say, okay, when is it time for the rest of our stuff to get looked at?
Well, I'm not saying cut every single thing in this plan. That's not what I'm saying. There's a happy medium.
But I don't, again, $11 million is the number that I felt was appropriate, and administration agreed. $11 million was the right number to spend in fund balance for 2025. And we were going to spend 10.7.
Plus bonding.
Plus 10.7 in bonding.
Plus bonding.
Now we're looking at 6.7 for bonding and still 11.3 in PAYGO. I don't feel it's fiscally prudent to spend $31 million in PAYGO in 1 year when we have over the next 5 years, needs of $27 million to do our PAYGO. There's your $30 million right there over the next 5 years. Schools typically are borrowed funds.
Typically, I know, typically, but
But
these could be different times.
again,
With the
I
interest rates where they are, these could be different times for us.
Honestly, it ultimately will come down to the budget and how it is put in the budget and what council adopts associated with the budget. As your finance director, I am not recommending that we spend $20 million of PAYGO on one project.
And I'm not saying that's my position, but I am saying I see things in here that I have concerns about.
You know,
Go
one
ahead,
of the,
Shani.
oh,
I have, I'm just playing as an average citizen. The town of Fruitland Primary School is 60 years old. 60 years old. And I'm not saying not to replace the roof at Civic Center. But Joe was saying, well, people not crying out. Here we go again. The community needs to know. I worked on 2 school projects in this county. This West Salisbury Elementary, part of the community input. Also, Salisbury Middle School, the community input. You need, if you're not going to build a school, I think the community needs to hear that you're not going to do it because it's not fiscal responsibility. Or if you don't, the phones are going to be ringing. Why are you leaving us out? Why are our children going to be, and I'm not saying you can do anything about it. I'm just making you aware of educating the community on why we cannot fund it.
And
Like John
as
said.
I have,
somebody in the administration or something should contact maybe the council the town people to tell them why they're not getting a new school. This school is 60 years old now.
Almost like we need a public information officer.
Yeah, it's something, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You go to the town meetings and inform the
More money
town.
spent.
You go to the town commissioner, that's a waste of money. You go to the town commissioner, or whatever they call them, or the town manager, and explain to them, the administration could explain to them why they're not getting to school because it's not fiscally responsible.
so
I don't want to personally tell someone who has children and in a 60-year-old building, they're not going to get a school.
So ultimately, it is the council's decision to allocate funding. So ultimately, it is your decision as to what is in here. If you feel that Fruitland Primary is more important than the other projects that we have presented, I get that. But I also get that we have a lot of other departments within this county that have needs. And what I'm saying is that the council, that we have basically $15 million now to spend for next year.
And I do want to add also, I believe it was their number 5 priority was a feasibility study for Y Middle, where Franklin Delano Roosevelt spoke. So it's even older. So my concern is Pam was very, open with them that we needed to take a couple-year pause before bond. Now they want to, and I get it, they're advocating for schools, which is what they should be doing, but they're advocating for no break. And now they have a feasibility study that's amongst their priority list, so that my guess is as soon as we finish the Fruitland School, they're going to queue up Y Middle. And at some point, we have to say, look, we have a debt threshold. We have debt that we need to get off the books. And I think what Pam has said is I've told them for a few years, FY25 and 26 should be the years. And, they listen, but, they don't agree. So.
We are still paying on Bennett High.
We get that. That's what counties do.
I get that, but
That's your
also,
commitment.
But you can't just borrow forever.
Nobody wants to say, okay, here we go. We're going to spend, $50 million or anything like that. There's never a good time to make that commitment. But those are what they call the hard decisions when you have to do it.
And
so we don't
presented some hard decisions to council.
So we don't keep talking through each other. I think the only issues we need to really be concerned about, you're saying the $4 million. Now, is that going to the other 2 schools, or is that $4 million going to go to Fruitland Primary?
What does the council want me to show?
What is the administration saying that the $4 million is going to be
Right now, the
used for?
administration's saying is the $4 million will go to Fruitland Primary, and there will be a pause for 2 years after that.
Okay, so we only have 2 questions then. That'll be a total of investment of about $5.8 million. with the 1.3 we already have out there, 1.8 we already have out there. So my question is, you've got that investment of over $5 million that we're talking about in '25.
Correct.
We need to know from the Board of Education, by committing to that, does that just go to waste because we're going to wait 2 more years to build it? Because they think they're going to build it January of 2025.
They are aware of the funding that we have told them. They have not adjusted their plans based on the funding that we have told them.
And I get that, but if you look at what
I
they
can't
have.
make them change their plans.
Well-
I can make them change their plans once they don't get funding.
Well, that's what I'm saying, making them change their plans after you've already committed over $5 million to them is a little bit uneasy for the taxpayers of Wicomico County.
so council-
We don't want to lose that investment, is what I'm
Okay,
trying to say. So we need to
council-
know 2 things. One is, can they survive with a 2-year delay after a $5 million investment? And the second thing is, what is the state going to allow Wicomico County to do? That's it.
State is going to put the project on pause.
Yeah, and I don't think anything ever good has come out of that.
So if, again, I don't view it as the most prudent option, but they asked us and they said, please put it on this way. My recommendation, my personal recommendation is it should be the other 2 projects and not fund anything for Fruitland Primary. And yes, we will have to wait.
I think we're going to have to talk to the Board of Education. We're going to have to schedule them for the next meeting to find out what we're not getting it. We need to know what their school thought is.
Remember, one of the reasons we have this much money is because we did have that money in reserves that earn interest. Okay? So that's one reason why we've got the money in reserves, because we had money in reserves that is collecting 5% interest through this state government fund.
Rate went up.
Yeah, the interest rate went up. So if we go and borrow money right away, we're talking about paying
Pay all that.
high interest rates. And, if you listen to the Fed and listen to, the talking heads, possibility next year interest rates are going to be cheaper. We don't know that. I mean, nobody knows, but, the best guesstimate is. So, anyway.
I think the Board of Education just needs to tell us that 2027 is a suitable year and that the state of Maryland will agree.
My
with it.
guess is they're going to tell you they want $20 million in fiscal '25. And ultimately, council will have to make a decision as to what needs to be done. We have presented a plan. That is administration's responsibility. It is now on council. I, as your finance director, have submitted a plan. A hard decision now has to be made. This is the plan that I think is financially feasible.
I sit on the Wicomico County Building Commission. Bunky, you're there as well. Has the train left the station? Certainly looks like when I sit in those meetings and you see a 32-page report saying that on January 2025, they're going to build the school. I'm thinking train's left the station.
When I've talked to staff, that why they wanted the 4 million in is so that they wouldn't get out of line with the state. They thought if we gave them 4 million this year, this would keep them in line. But, you're going to hear it right from them next meeting, so I don't want to speak for them.
No, but if they say that, if they say, hey, the $4 million will do it and throw the rest of it into 27, 28, I'm okay with that. I just don't have any input.
They are going to advocate for 26, 27.
Yes.
They are not going to advocate for 27. I can tell you that right now. In my current estimates, I don't think we have it in 26. But as the fact that we're not budgeting 26, could I put it there? My fear of putting it in there as 26, then it gets it in everybody's mind that we're going to do it. I can't say we're doing it in 26.
What's adding $20 million to our debt limit? Is that bringing it real close?
We're not, because of our increasing assessments, we are not approaching that number. Honestly, it is not the debt. It was a couple years ago when we were talking in 2020, it was a combined thing. It was debt limit and it was the fact that we weren't having a lot of payoff in 25, 26. Now it is the payoff. Ultimately, if we add $20 million, it is basically $1 million a year plus interest, whatever interest rate that is, that we will have to add, and we will not be subtracting $1 million for another bond falling off the books.
If we borrow it.
I would not recommend you pay it all. I would not.
I can tell you, if you read those 2 letters by Standard & Poor's and Moody's, they highly recommend a strong reserve fund for
We are,
two reasons. It gives you a good rating, and it gives you a good interest rate.
so,
It wasn't too long ago, we were talking rough numbers, and we were in the $50 million range. Now it's at what, 87 million? Is that
It's
what
at
it is?
85.
85
Well, you have to take
million.
out the 5.3, so it's around 80 million total unrestricted.
So I'm not a spender, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of, big difference.
again, but if we spend $20 million on 10 projects that benefit the county, 20 projects that benefit the county, or $20 million on one project, we then don't have the $20 million. We would not have the $20 million available to us to do Verizon. We would not have $20 million.
That's not so. That's not so.
It's gone. If you allocate $20 million.
If you go from
We could do
$85
Verizon because
million
we've been very
and you
conservative
drop
over the
down
last
20
20 years.
million, that leaves you with 65.
This is where I'll admit,
And we
I
thought
am
we were in the
frustrated. I'm
50.
frustrated sitting here. Last week, I will say it, and I am frustrated because a week ago, you didn't want to spend $1. 2 weeks ago, you didn't want to spend a dime. And now you're saying, we want to spend $20 million of our fund balance on a school. That makes me, it blows my mind.
Well, it blows our
The
mind that
difference
this
is
wasn't
I
in
find
there
out
to
this
begin with.
week
I don't-
that we've got $85 million.
I've been telling you all along that there's plenty of fund balance for all these things, and you won't listen to me.
Heck, 2 weeks
So-
ago, I thought it was 40 million.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
Seriously.
never $40 million.
It was 40 million, I thought, last year, and it was 50 million, and we took 10 off to pay for projects.
I have been
And I was
telling
under the
you-
impression it was 40 after that.
And I have been telling you that we were not going to spend every dollar that we had set.
I was under the understanding that it was 50-some million dollars in that fund balance. And this week, I hear it's 85 million.
Well, I think,
And you wonder why I'm considering using some of our savings instead of borrowing.
I would never advocate for using $20 million on one project, ever.
I think you're fixated, thinking I want to take $20 million and spend it on the Board of Education.
Well, we have
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I'm rethinking my position because we have a lot more money than what I originally was informed we had. So I'm rethinking my position.
we'll meet
May-
in 2 weeks. We'll meet in 2 weeks to re-review this. I want to meet with the Board of Education in 2 weeks, or else maybe we can get a letter to them ahead of time and have them give us something in writing, letting us know if this is going to really compromise their circumstances with the state of Maryland.
My assumption
Right.
is they're going to write a letter saying they want $20 million in fiscal '25 and 20 million, or whatever the number is in fiscal '26. And as your finance director, I am not advocating for that.
What Pam just said is $20 million in what, 25? What's next?
Yeah.
What's next
There's
after
always-
that?
there's always
Another
a next,
20?
Joe, you know that. There always has to be a next.
And
know.
we as
I know that. But what is it?
We as the county administration and county council have to make the hard decisions of when do we have to put a pause. I am suggesting we put a pause on building a school at this moment. I am going to be hated by everybody in the community for stating those words. I get it. I know what my job is, and that is to state the hard facts.
You're supporting this plan.
I am stating the
But you
fact that I don't believe at this moment it is the right time for us to commit to another $50 million starting in 2025.
Well, we need to know if we have that privilege, because once we've already committed the 1.37 million, which we did last year, we need to know whether that money, we're just going to throw that money away.
It's not.
If we don't get on the, finish the project by 2020.
What's the
Excuse
total
me, Joe.
project cost?
It's
I did not
48,
break-
I tell you, the county's portion is 48,402,000. The state is 38,013,000.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt would like to speak if you,
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, John, thank you. So one thing we haven't talked about is that if we delay the school, what's the cost escalation going to be? And I think we really need to get with the Board of Education and see if maybe there's something between 4 million and 20 million that could work for everybody.
That's a good point.
I have a,
But that only addresses this year's FY25 budget. So 48 million is our cost. Then you've also have to consider what FY26 we'd
Oh,
need.
yeah,
in
you're committed.
FY27.
Yeah, you're committed, you're right.
I have a suggestion, because it's 9 o'clock.
We can talk about this next time, right?
And I understand Pam's frustration because this is a plan. And when you make, it's like you have, take a blueprint and you're building a house and you have a plan. It's not saying the plan is already cut in stone, because next year you're gonna have to do another CIP plan, am I correct, Pam?
Yes.
And that's gonna be the same way, it's a, give you an idea to me what the departments want, long-term, short-term projects. I still think that we should consider the school. If you can't do it this year, we should not make the community wait for a school. That's all I'm saying. But guys, this is a plan that she sat down and wrote with figures and stuff, numbers. And I can understand her frustration, because I've been through capital improvement plans with Pam before. And she had to educate the council members on the city council. This is a plan. It's not anything that cannot be changed. And I agree also that we need to discuss it with the Board of Education and again with the town manager of Fruitland.
Right, and I appreciate what you're saying, Shane, and it's also a plan that we've already committed $1.37 million to. And we're talking about committing another $4 million this too. By that time, you're already there. And someone was using the analogy of a house or an anecdote. Heck, would you build your house and not have the roof put on the next year? Not plan to put the roof on? You plan to invest $100,000
Yeah.
to build the house, but then never put the roof on for another 2 years? Anyway, I don't want
I
to,
can see
we can go,
everybody's
we can
point.
go
That's fine.
back and forth. Let's find out what the Board of Education
Yeah.
really wants to tell us and where this commitment has to be.
Good idea.
Is there anything on this capital improvement plan that needs attention other than the 20 million? Do we need to
It's just a
pull away from somewhere else? I'm not
It's just
asking you, I'm asking the council if there's anywhere that we're interested in saying, I'm sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to say that.
Oh, that's okay.
But where we need
I
to
interrupted you.
adjust anything because she's waiting on us. And I mean, we've been a couple weeks on it, and I'm fine with, we're going to kick it down the road, for a couple more weeks. But I just want to remind everyone that, let's ask her questions. If we're thinking about removing anything off of this thing, let's tell her now so she's not wasting any more of her time.
It depends on what the council might want to do. They have all the information. I mean, you can see very clearly that we have, we have airport commitments, we have Cedar Hill Marina Park commitments, we have the Chesapeake Watershed commitments, the Civic Center commitments. And I think Shane said earlier, we have to sort of decide what our priorities are going to be.
So
I understand this is a roadmap. I understand that.
do you want the typing errors to be corrected?
Please.
Yes or no? Second, do you
Okay,
want
I
the
mean-
$4.1 million removed from this since you just approved it this evening?
You're talking about, what do you mean? For the
roof.
The roof, the Civic Center roof. Do you want that removed?
Well, if it's in 25, it's
It's
now.
24.
Well, that's what I'm
It's in
saying. If it's in 24, then it would have to be adjusted to the CIP for 25 as, what's the terminology? Prior, what is it?
Again, since this hasn't been adopted, we can easily take it off the list right now and make these numbers change and have the roadmap be without it.
I think you would put in there where you have prior appropriations through fiscal year 24, that's where that 4.1 million would
So
go.
again, at this moment, the historical way we have handled these items is if there isn't an ask for another year, it just comes off the list. So we would remove it. I can easily move it to that
Just put it
column.
in prior appropriations so that we know that
Okay.
that it's there.
Just make it
That's fine.
clear, that's all.
And we'll find out what this,
Pam, what about the 2 facelift projects for the marinas?
Those aren't the same things that are on here.
They're not? Okay, okay.
I don't believe so. I think it was additional funding for additional facelift. beyond what we already had. I will verify that, but I am
Okay.
90% sure that it is additional funding, not the funding that we have listed.
Considerations that's listed. Okay.
Yes, it's trying to move forward stuff that weren't listed.
I think it's state grant funding.
So, because most of what is on here is state grant funding.
Yeah,
It
that's
is not actually coming out of either PAYGO or borrowing.
That's good.
I think in the interim, the council needs to re-review. Angie went to a lot of trouble to give us a very detailed list of the PAYGO expenses as well as the bonding expenses. We know we have 38 projects in PAYGO, 38. And then there's about 6 in the bonding. So I would suggest everybody re-review it and come to some, well, it's four in it on bonding, but look very seriously as to how you think maybe if we want to adjust anything, what needs to be done. But if you have the Excel spreadsheet, she did that on purpose to try to make it so you could see it all in one column as opposed to going back and forth to trying to find it in the CIP. And meanwhile, we'll also be able to talk to the Board of Education and find out really where we do stand with their funding. Right?
Yep.
Good.
You ready to go home?
I'm trying to find it, the Hurdle Building. What was the expense on that? Was it a HVAC?
Well, we actually had to do the HVAC this fiscal year because they were, like, it failed. So I believe that actually got taken off of here, if I remember correctly. But if it didn't, that could be another one that I could.
The feasibility study for a new project, but I think that's for Horizon, right?
And then there's a 200,000 for PAYGO for Hurdle.
So there was there was an elevator replacement in 29, and there was a hurdle HVAC in 29. Again, this is not appropriating anything for 29. Could I remove those? Yes, but do we know when we're moving into the other facility? I can't answer that question. I hope it's before 29. But again, that's why this becomes a plan, because tomorrow something can walk through the door, or if, let's just say you adopted this evening. Tomorrow something could walk through the door, and this plan has something that has become obsolete. Between now and when the budget is presented and adopted, there could be other things that make certain things on this obsolete for 25 alone. And that's why I request that we adopt this before I submit, with enough time to make sure that I'm following this roadmap. But again, we are still working on the overall budget, and so until we have that finalized, we may find that maybe as administration, we don't request one or two because of something else that has come up. I can't answer that. I'm making suppositions. Right now, if I had to submit to you the budget tomorrow and we had the funding available, which I believe we do for $11 million of PAYGO, all of these projects would be in here, and $6.7 million would be in there for borrowing. That is what we would present. That is today, March 5th. You will get a budget in April, on the third Tuesday in April. Could that look different? Yes.
Did I understand you right? You are going to put the Board of Education 20 million in there for us to look at?
I would put it in there for 27, 28, 29. That is where I would place it.
Maybe they'll say that's okay. Maybe the state of Maryland will say that's okay. That's fine with me. I don't care. I just want it to make sense.
Right.
The only thing I can tell you is I'm kind of concerned about Pirates Wharf. We're looking at $900,000 investment in Pirates Wharf, and I get it. But my God, we have a total of over $5 million we put into Pirates Wharf.
Most of that from federal grant.
I get it, but that project's total was supposed to be maybe $1 million.
Yeah.
And we're in $5 million now. Anyway. All right. Believe me, I get it. I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. Don't want to, discourage anyone, but someone said priority.
John, we're going to get $250 to rent the pavilion,
I left that
so we'll
part
get
out.
that money back.
I left that part out.
Yeah. It'll be an enterprise fund.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you, Bunky. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Yep.
Anybody should go into closed session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.